I got a story for you this time. Wow, it's an interesting story. There was a merchant. His name was Motel. That's Yiddish for Mordechai. And he was an extremely busy. Thank you. Extremely busy businessman. He was busy all day. For his parnasa, he would buy and sell cows as his business. So even on Friday, he would work right up to Shabbat, and then he would close his place and then quickly get ready for Shabbat, and he would go through Shabbat mainly sleeping. He would sleep through the whole Shabbat. Yeah, he would go to tefillah, quickly, let's get it done. I gotta get catch up on my sleep, and that's how it was. And then the whole week all over again. By the meals, no singing, but it was a good man, don't get me wrong. It was this was his Shabbat. Every year he would go to a city called Chernovich. That was a city in Europe, and he would go, and there was a show, the market that everyone would gather and they sell their merchandise, and he would go buy and sell his things. So the whole week he was really working hard in this show to try to buy and sell. He made a hefty amount of money, something like, let's call it $500,000 equivalent. And he was all happy, but by the time it was over, it was already Friday. If he wants to head back home, he won't make it before Shabbat. So he started looking where he's going to stay. He found a place to stay. And what's he going to do with his money? Everyone says, go give it to the Rabbi, Rav Chaim of Chernovich. He was his big tzaddik. He has a Sefer Be'er Ma'im Chaim, famous chacham. And so he goes to the Rabbi's house, and he's standing there. This is already Friday noon. And he's about to knock on the door. He hears from inside the house a heavenly voice. The rabbi was going over the parasha. It's a mitzvah to read the parasha on Friday. Shnayim Mikra ve'echad Targum. And so the rabbi was reading it. It was such a beautiful, sweet sound. He couldn't get himself to knock on the door and stop that. And so he just stood there, enchanted with the sound, just listening. Meantime, he was just standing there. He hears from another door, I guess, different knock. Door opens, and he's listening. He hears someone is crying. Someone quietly is crying, and he's trying to listen what's going on. The lady is saying how she's a widow, and she has a daughter who is of age, and she needs to marry her off, and she accepted upon herself a certain amount of money to pay. And she doesn't have that kind of money. She can't come up with the money, and she's afraid that the shidduch is going to break off, and she's crying. So the rabbi asked her, how much do you need? And she said, let's go back to our $500,000 equivalent. And the rabbi says, I'm so sorry, I don't even have close to that to help you. I could help you with everything I have, but I don't have more than that. So, meantime, Motel is behind the door. He feels this money really heavy on his hand, I have that amount of money. And he's thinking, mulling over, what do I do? He has this poor lady crying, and he says, you know what, with this money I could really help this woman. He fights and fights within himself. He says, you know what, knocked on the door. A person comes and opens the door. He says, I want to talk to the rabbi. They take him to the rabbi. He goes to his ear. He says, Rabbi, I have the money for this lady. I want you to please give the money to her to help her out. The rabbi hears this. His face lights up. And he gives the money to her. And she leaves the home absolutely happy. Seventh heaven. Now the rabbi turns to him and says, I need a favor from you. He says, what? He says, I want you to be my guest this Shabbat. I want you to spend Shabbat with me. This he wasn't expecting, because he was already making arrangements to go to sleep the whole Shabbat. You know what I'm saying? And he's shocked and says, you know what? he was thinking, like, they already dragged him in, and he's there. It's already early, like, like Friday noon. He sees how they're preparing for Shabbat, white tablecloth, beautiful. Everything is getting shiny, and like, the smell of the food, and like, everything, all the preparations that are going around. He looks at the rabbi, he sees he's getting shinier and shinier by the moment that Shabbat comes closer. And then Shabbat starts, the singing, and the seudah, and the divrei Torah, and the tefillot, everything, the whole Shabbat. He was not on earth. He was on a different plane. It was something that he never felt in his life. It was like Olam Haba. So when Shabbat was over, after Havdalah, he had to go back. So the rabbi says, listen, with the unbelievable mitzvah that you perform, you have no idea what you did in Shamayim. This is Mesirut Nefesh. You gave up yourself, the money that you made the whole week. Like, Baruch Hashem, he was wealthy, it was okay, but it was Mesirut Nefesh. You have to know that now is Et Ratzon. This is a time of great will in front of Hashem. I could pray for you, and Be'ezrat Hashem, my prayer is going to be accepted. Ask me what you want. He's thinking, Baruch Hashem, I'm married, I have very good children, I have a good parnasah. He's thinking, and he says to the rabbi, I have one request. Give me a beracha that every Shabbat I should feel that holiness and that joy and happiness and that closeness to Hashem like you feel every Shabbat. Give me that. Rabbi looks at him and he says, listen, I'll tell you, I could ask for that, but I'm afraid it's not good for you. He says, why? What do you mean? He says, because the whole week you're working hard for your parnasah. You're busy, your whole thoughts are about, cows. You're gonna suddenly, you don't learn Torah as much, and it's gonna be very hard for you to be able to carry that load of kedusha and holiness. It's too big for you. He didn't understand. He says, no, I want it. I want this baracha. So the rabbi says, okay. Gives him the baracha and he leaves. He got home, that's it. Started his weekly stuff. All he thought about was his parnasah, buying, selling, doing this, that. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday night, suddenly he feels like, whoa, he has this waiting for Shabbat suddenly comes into him. Like, and he realized, what, in 3 days I'm going to be invited to the King Almighty. Like, I'm going to sit at his table. And he starts readying himself. Wednesday, he's praying longer than usual. And during the day, he took care of some business, but then he left earlier, like, to go home and start preparing, like, in his mind and the home and everything. Thursday, whoa, his prayer even took much longer. And he didn't really feel like going to work so much because he was like, starting to do preparation for Shabbat, cleaning the house, taking care of things, washing the floors, doing everything, like, shopping back and forth. Friday, he sat down and started reading the Torah. Forget it. The whole day he was like busy with that, getting ready. The whole house was already shining. He told his kids, like, this is Shabbat. This is like, he got everyone in the mood. He starts writing things about the parasha, and this was how he prepared for Shabbat. Then suddenly Shabbat comes, and he's already in seventh heaven. He can't sleep the whole night. He was studying Torah the whole Shabbat. He's like in his seudah. It was not like before. It would go on, and he was singing, and everyone saw the joy on his face. He was like a different person. The whole Shabbat was like this. Shabbat ended. Fainted. Shabbat is gone. Then the Neshama Yitera left. He fainted, and they brought him back. He was just gone. They put him to his bed, and he went to sleep. Like, so morning came. He's back to himself. He's going to work, and then again, this happened a few weeks. He couldn't take it. He was really, after Shabbat, he was getting extremely weak because he wasn't prepared for this. This came down to him, like, suddenly. He saw this is not going to work out. He went back to the Rav Chaim, and begged him, please, I can't do this. He says, okay, I hate to tell you, I told you so. But this is something that you have to yearn for. This is something that you now tasted it, you see it, So now you don't even need my bracha. Now you have to yearn and try to do as much as you can to have that sweetness and that beauty of the Shabbat has to offer you. This is my prayer to you that the Rav told him that's what you should have, and that's the story of Matal. It's a beautiful lesson for us. We can't be Matal, but we could try to at least do our part to somewhat appreciate the Kedusha of Shabbat, appreciate what Shabbat brings for us. You enter Shabbat, you enter Olam Haba. That's what it is. You enter Shabbat, you enter Olam Haba. All right, speaking of Shabbat, by the way, we are in Halachot of Mukseh, and the last thing that we started was Mukseh, Mahmat, Hisaron, Kis. Anyone remember what Mukseh, Mahmat, Hisaron, Kis? Right? Hisaron Kis, a lack of pockets. That means this object, right, is something that I am very careful not to use this object, whatever it is. It's expensive, or it's like, we gave an example of a knife of shechita, or a knife of berit milah, or special razors that they use. They're very careful. You wouldn't peel an orange with it, because it's extremely important. You don't want there to be any blemish on this knife. This mukseh is a harsh type of mukseh that you cannot move it, even the sort of gufo unkomo. Unlike keli shemelachto leisur, unlike something that is a keli which is used for isur, which we mentioned, like a hammer. A hammer you could move for other purposes. A hammer you could move. Let's say you need the place, or you need it itself to do something mutar. You could move it. This we can't, right? Mukseh Mahmat Hisaron Kis, we can't. What are other examples? A camera, right? A camera. A person is not going to use a camera, for other uses except for shooting pictures. Back in the day, used to be postage stamps or your checkbook. This sort of stuff. You're not going to take a check and use it to floss your teeth on Shabbat. It's these sort of things. Really, halachically, it depends on a person. Each person is different. Some guy couldn't care less about his cell phone. He gives it to his kids to play games with it all day. Even if they break it, he says, "Who cares? I have insurance. No big deal." But some people, they care. They said, "Oh, I can't live without my phone. Are you kidding me? I'm going to give it to you. It's going to break. By the time I get the next phone, it's going to be the next day." No way, no how. He's very, very careful with his cell phone. So it depends on the person. For one person, it is considered a Mukseh Mahmat Hisaron Kis. For the other person, it's just a Keli shemelachto leisur. So really, these things depend on that. How about things at home? If you have something expensive, like a picture frame, very, very expensive picture frame, it's usually hanging on the wall. You're not going to use it as a tablecloth, right? Or use it as something to sit on. This is something that you carry, and it's expensive. It costs a lot of money. Is it considered Mukseh Mahmat Hisaron Kis, that you can't move it under no circumstances? No. Let's say you want to show it to someone, right? Nothing's going to happen. You just take it off the wall. You show it to your friend, the details on that picture, and then you put it back up, right? It's not something that's going to damage it. You have it as a picture frame on the wall for people to look at it. That's what it does. Although it's an expensive frame, but still, it doesn't make it Mukseh Mahmat Hisaron Kis. Mukseh Mahmat Hisaron Kis is that you are very careful not to use it for any other usage for fear of it getting damaged. This is not. This is you want to take it off the wall and show it to someone. That is allowed. Let's say you have you own a business, and you sell let's say cups, plates, this sort of things that you use at home, whatever it is. And obviously, your merchandise that you sell, you don't use them for private usage. You don't use them because they might get ruined and nobody's going to buy it. These things, the halacha is that they are asur to be moved on Shabbat because they are Mukseh Mahmat Hisaron Kis. Yeah. You're not gonna like oh I need cups. I know I have some in the storage for my store. I'm just gonna go get some cups. Let's say you don't need to take them to the mikveh, whatever the case is, right? They're made by a Jew, and things like that. You're not gonna do that because then what are you gonna do? It's a loss for you. That is if the person is careful not to use them for personal use. What if someone is open? He says, so what? Who cares? I have plenty of cups. Baruch Hashem, I have guests. Let me bring the cups from the storage room. If he doesn't care, again, we go back to the halakha that we mentioned. So such a person, he was never masiach da'at. We said, what's mukseh? Mukseh means that he puts it out of his mind. So the first person, he puts it out of his mind. He's not going to go to the storage and get those cups or whatever it is to use. But the second person that we mentioned, he would. Because he was never masiach da'at. He never removed his mind. His mind was on those things all the time. If I need it, I will use it. That's the type of attitude that he has. Therefore, he's fine. Right? Okay, so so far so good?
What if someone sells jewelry? Is that considered Hisaron case?
Very good, excellent. That, again, it depends on him. Some guy who sells jewelry, some of them, they love to wear it or to have it worn so that people will go to his wife, oh, wow, where did you get this? And then he finds a customer, And then there's the other person, no, he won't use it. It might get lost, it might get damaged. There's two different sets of behavior. The first one is not Mukseh Mahmat Hisaron Kis. He would use it. So before Shabbat, he had in mind, no problem, he would. The second person, oh no, this is Mukseh Mahmat Hisaron Kis. You see how it works? Now, let's make the same scenario with either you want to use jewelry or we'll go back to the guy that has this store. Now, what happens if this person decides on Shabbat, he changes his mind. He wants to use it. He said, you know what? I don't care. He had a change of heart. He became a Baal Teshuvah. And he had a change of heart. He says, you know what? Baruch Hashem is a simcha. I want to use it. Can he use it on Shabbat now that he changed his mind about it? Why? Perfect. What was the rule? Migu de itkatza'e beben hashmashot, itkatza'e lekula yuma. We said this 2 times ago. Because it became Mukseh at the time of Ben Hashmashot, at the time of the start of Shabbat, so the name Mukseh will remain on it, and it'll stay like that for the whole Shabbat. Right? Very good. Now, what if he changed his mind? He was always, very makpiz, very careful not to use it. Friday afternoon, he says, you know what? Just in case, I know I'm going to have a lot of guests, so just in case a lot of guests do come, I will use this stuff. So he changed his mind before Shabbat. Then at the point of Ben Hashmashot, at the point of the start of Shabbat, it wasn't Mukseh because he has his mind on it. Then in that case, it is not considered Mukseh Mahmat Hisaron Kis. It's not, and therefore he could move it. They could use it when the time will come. Good. That's the clear distinction. Yes.
I have a drawer of makeup that am I allowed to open it
if you have something else in it that you want to use.
Yeah.
If it's something important that you have in there, yeah, that's we're gonna get to that. That's another topic in Mukseh. But yeah, in that case, you could open it. If there's something that you need on Shabbat, you can go ahead and open that drawer. Even though you have makeup and other things of Mukseh, you might have your wallet in it, right? Wallet is a little tougher. Makeup might be a little bit easier, but different categories of Mukseh. Now, in the same halakha, food and drink, even though you have it's from the store, it's not from your home, it's not from your pantry, right? These stuff, even though it's for sale, they are mutar. You are allowed to move them on Shabbat. It's not a problem, right? Let's say he decides, Baruch Hashem, I have guests, there's a simcha, and I need to go to my grocery store's storage and bring, I don't know, Coke or salads or whatever it is. That is allowed. One is allowed to go ahead and use it because food, the person has his mind on it. He never so makbid. No, I won't use it. Baruch Hashem, Shabbat. We have kids, we have guests, or whatever the case is. He's not maktzeh da'ato. He doesn't remove his mind from these sort of things, and therefore it doesn't have the status of Mukseh, Mahmat, Hisaron, Kis, for sure not. And food, we said, it doesn't have the halacha of Mukseh because it's food. You're always connected to food. Now, this is an interesting one. Halacha changed. Poskim bring down a piece of paper that you use it to write in, like like a stationery, like these nice stationeries, or an empty notebook, right? A notebook that you have written notes, like that you could use on Shabbat. That's not mukseh at all. But an empty notebook, a blank notebook, these things are mukseh. Mahmat Hisaron Kis, because what do you mean? You don't want to just throw it around. You're not going to use it for any other usage. You need it to write on. You need it to write in. Paper to write on, notebook to write in, and so on and so forth. Being that a person is makpi, he's very careful not to use them for anything else except for writing it. So, because they might get dirty or something, or it's going to get ripped, and so on and so forth. It is considered Mukseh, Mahmat, Hisaron, Kis. Have you heard this before?
Yes.
That's halacha changed. Nowadays, nobody cares. Paper, even stationery, nobody cares. You could use it. You're reading a sefer, you're reading a book, and you need to keep the place. You wouldn't hesitate using a stationery as a bookmark, right? Definitely not. Or an empty notebook to use it as a bookmark. So therefore, this halacha changed. It's not like before. No, it's not important anymore. Being that you would have your mind to use these things. So a lot of poskim, they write that it's no longer the case. Then a person could go ahead and use for obviously for mutar purposes. You're not going to write on it. To use it as a bookmark or things similar to that. A person would go ahead and use a blank piece of paper or an empty notebook could be used on Shabbat. Now, everyone has a different set of plates and silverware and all the things for Pesach, right? And you're very careful not to use them during the year. So it might have the name of Mukseh Mahmat Hisaron Kis because you wouldn't want to use these on the weekday during the year. So therefore, you might have thought that they have the halacha of Mukseh Mahmat Hisaron Kis. The halacha is that they're not Mukseh Mahmat Hisaron Kis. So wait a minute, the fact that he's so careful that nobody should touch them, nobody should use them, that's only because he doesn't want to make his job harder right before Pesach. If someone used it, now I have to make it either kosher or go buy new ones. Who needs that trouble? So hey kids, don't touch those plates, don't touch those cups, don't touch those silverware because it is for Pesach. That's the whole reason. Otherwise, who cares? Nobody cares. That's the only reason why we're careful. So therefore, they are not considered Mukseh, Mahmat, Hisaron, Kis. And this, Rabbi says it, Shlomo says it, the Sefer Shemra Shabbat Kerechata, but Rabbi Yashiv says no. Rabbi Yashiv says they are considered Mukseh, Mahmat, Hisaron, Kis. So Rabbi is arguing with Rabbi Yashiv regarding this matter that Pesach dishes, they are considered not Mukseh, Mahmat, Hisaron, Kis. Yeah?
I could use the glassware.
You could definitely use the glass anyway for during the year. That's correct. Now, what if a person has a beautiful silver candlestick, right? And he has it on his china closet, I don't know, whatever. He wants to move it. Can he move it, or do we say, wait a minute, this is mukseh. This is either you could say that it's a mukseh mahmat kelish melachto leisur. Or you could say it's a Mukseh Mahmat Hisaron Kis, right? The answer is, really, it's not a Kelisha Melachto Leisur. What makes a candelabra or a candlestick a Kelisha Melachto Leisur, a vessel, a utensil, that the usage is Asur? It's not Asur. What it does is a container. It'll contain the flame. At most, it becomes a basis. It becomes a base for Davar HaAsur, for the flame. That's all it is. it itself is not like a cell phone. It's not like a pen that you write with. It's not like a cell phone that you use. It's not. It's not a hammer that you bang a nail with. It's just a candelabra. It holds the flame. The flame is mukseh. If a candle was lit on this Shabbat, then this Shabbat, this thing became a basis ledavar asur. We're going to get to that. This became a base and a holder for something which is asur, and it is asur for the whole Shabbat. But if no candle was lit on this, it's not. It's so therefore it's not kiddush melachot leisur. First of all, second of all, it's not considered a mukseh mahmat hisaron kis because what are you going to do with it, right? Aside showing off, right? That's all it is. You're going to use it as a paperweight, okay? So be it. So therefore, it's we say that it's not. It doesn't have the halachah of mukseh, and therefore, if you want to move it, let's say like in the way or whatever, you could move it, and that is not an issue. There are other things that there is a questionable if there are mukseh mahmat hisaron kis. There is a halakha about, let's say you're sitting and suddenly I don't know, one of the kids was like running and the tablecloth got pulled, and there's a very, 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 very expensive glass crystal thing is about to fall. Can you stop it from falling? Obviously. First of all, if you don't, it's going to break and it's going to break to pieces, and those little pieces are a danger. And we mentioned before something which is a danger to the kids or to anyone that you have to move it. You can't just leave it there and say, "Oh no, these things are mukseh." So you just anyway you would be moving it. So therefore, you could go ahead and hold it. Don't let it from falling. Keep it there and just push it back. That is okay. We don't say, "Oh, it's a mukseh mahmat hisaron kis." There's another case. It's cute. Let's say it's Shabbat. Tonight is Pesach, so you can't eat matzah today, right? So the round matzot that you want to use tonight, they are mukseh mahmat hisaron kis. Nobody should dare touch that, because if you use it, if you touch it, if you break it, I'm not going to have matzah tonight. Where am I going to go? It's Shabbat, all the stores are closed. Where am I going to get these round shemura matzot? So then, on that Shabbat, this thing is considered mukseh mahmat hisaron kis. And one is not allowed to, therefore, move it at all for any reason. Right? Ben letzorach gufo umkomo, nothing. So these round matzot on that Shabbat would be, this year is, again, we're going to have Pesach on Friday night. I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
Yes, that's true. Okay, so that concludes what we wanted to mention about the Mukseh mahmat hisaron kis. I hope everybody understands the limits of Mukseh mahmat hisaron kis.
So what about a cell phone?
So a cell phone depends on you. If you're not so makpid on it, if you're not so careful about it, you would give it to your children to play with, then it would only be a kiddush melachot leisur. It doesn't have the halakha of mukseh mahmat hisaron kis. Once it becomes a kiddush melachot leisur, then you would be allowed to move it if you need the space where it's on, or you need it itself as a paperweight. I don't know, whatever. You don't want your tissues to fly, napkins. But otherwise, if for you, you're careful, you don't just give it to the kids to play with, or you're careful with it, then it gets the halakha of mukseh mahmat hisaron kis, and you cannot move it, even letzorach gufo umkomo.
The kids took it. What are you going to do then?
You say, you tell them, please put it kindly in
right.
in that room, if you know what's good for you. Right?
So does that mean you can't move it with a shinui either? Or
With the shinui is something else. We are right now, up to here, all the movements that we're talking about is regular. Just pick it up, lift it, and put it somewhere safe. We're going to get to that. There's shinui, there's kelachar yad, there's different ways of moving it. We're going to get to that. Right now, let's deal with the, we'll go step by step. Shinui, yeah, you want to kick it off the table? Fine, give it a karate. And just throw it right in the closet. That'll work. Okay. Any questions on Mukseh mahmat hisaron kis before we move on to the next type of Mukseh? This is the toughest one. This is called Mukseh mahmat gufo. Mukseh Mahmat Gufo means that this thing is mukseh. That means you set it aside. Mukseh, right? Makseh oto. He sets this thing aside because of it itself. Gufo, it itself. That means the thing that we have in front of us, this is useless for me on Shabbat. So anything which is not a keli, a vessel utensil, anything that is not edible, it's not food, for human or otherwise, it's not food, it's not a food item, and it is not something that is usable, that you don't usually normally under normal circumstances you don't use it. This has the name Mukseh Mahmat Gufo. It itself, like you say, what am I going to do with this? Like under normal circumstances. Examples: a rock. A rock is a Mukseh Mahmat Gufo. It's not a kli. It's not food, usually. And what are you going to use it for? Mukseh Mahmat Gufo. The dirt, like sand, right? Sand, pebbles, pieces of wood, like pieces of wood, or dry beans. You have some lima beans, pinto beans, white beans, lentils, these sort of stuff. They're absolutely Mukseh Mahmat Gufo because you can't eat it, right? You can't, and it's not a kli. What are you going to do with it? So therefore, it's absolutely Mukseh Mahmat Gufo. Flour, not flour for beauty. That's ground wheat into flour. Again, you have no use for it. It's not edible, really, and therefore, it's Mukseh Mahmat Gufo. Baking powder, a dough, right? The peel of walnuts, almonds, the pit of an apricot. Although I think apricots, if you crack it's edible, right?
I heard it's good for some diseases too.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Good. Then it's different, right? Right. So then that could be depends on the culture, right? But definitely the seeds of the pit of an olive. Back in the day, they used to use the pits of olives for heating purposes. They would put them in fire and they would give off heat. But nowadays, or bone, like not the soft bones, thick bone. This stuff, they're absolutely Mukseh Mahmat Gufo. What are you gonna do with it? You can't eat it. You can bite into it. Even the other living creatures can't. We're talking about heavy ones, and also, of course, animals, right? Dog, cat, fish. These are considered. All of them are considered Mukseh Mahmat Gufo, right? That you cannot move them. Coins, right? Coins, money. Again,
How come animals falls under this category?
because it's not food, and it's not a kli. So what are you gonna do with it?
It's a living being.
Yeah, it's a living being that
So you can't take the dog for a walk?
we're gonna discuss it. So Be'ezrat Hashem, we're gonna get.
I'm sorry, what's the
You could take
what's,
it.
What's the difference between
A child is gonna say "Chai noseh et atzmo." A child is.
I just don't get how it's not an object.
Child is a neshama. Is completely. It's a different category. Come on.
Of course, but it's a living thing, so I would
Right.
just think it's like a different category.
Remember, the law for Mukseh Mahmat Gufo is that it's not a food item and it's not a kli. Can you? Okay, a child is a human being. Like hello, is a human being. And you know something? I could tell you, a child could be a Mukseh, right? But if you don't tend to it, it'll die. An animal, if you don't tend to it, it won't die. Right? It'll take care of itself. Right? How's that? Okay. What else is there? We're gonna come back. I'm just throwing these things. Oh, statements, bank statements. What are you gonna do with bank statements on Shabbat? It's not a kli. It's not food. Oh, tools are mukseh. They're a kli. Remember, they're a kli. Kli shemelachto le'isu. Right? The usage of it is asur. It's different. We're talking. We have to find things that have no usage on Shabbat. your gas and electric and water bill, these things are Mukseh Mahmat Gufo. So therefore, if you find them on the table on Shabbat, you say, oh no, do I have to see this on Shabbat? So you can't just pick it up and put it away. You need to use a shinui to get rid of it. Okay, good. That was a... Now, a Mukseh Mahmat Gufa, as we said, is more stringent than all the other Muksehs that we mentioned, because you cannot move it at all. Therefore, if you have a rock, if you have a piece of wood or whatever it is, and they're not usable, you can't use them, right? On Shabbat, even though you could, now on Shabbat you say, you know what, I could really use that little rock to cover this pickle jar, you know. But it's asur, you can't move it. Unless, one way is, you just think on Friday, you know what, it's a nice round rock, you know, it could fit perfectly on that pickle jar, just in case the tip gets lost, the cap gets lost. Then, because you thought of it before Shabbat, but you have to actually think, I'm gonna use this. You have to think, I am going to use this on Shabbat, you know, and you say, you know what, I could just, but this is another condition. It has to be le'olam. You set it aside in your mind. You don't have to say it, right? You don't have to say it. You just say it aside in your mind. This makes a perfect, I don't know, the paperweight. You know, perfect. That's it. That means from now on I'm going to use it as a paperweight. Then you have removed the halacha of Mukseh Mahmat Gufo from this rock. One possibility. Second possibility, you actually on Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, sometime before Shabbat, you did use this rock for this purpose. Then you have practically removed the halacha of Mukseh Mahmat Gufo from this rock. See how it worked? A rock, with your mind, you could make this thing not Mukseh. Just with your mind. Make it into a kli. It becomes a paperweight, it becomes a door stopper, right? The door closes, gets on your nerves, and you want to take a piece of rock, put it by the door. You say in your mind, you know what, this rock is perfect as a door stopper. You made it. Or you actually use it during the week, once even, as a door stopper. That action made it into a kli. Alright? So we started the halachot of Mukseh Mahmat Gufo, and it's gonna be interesting halacha because it's gonna encompass a lot of things. There's a question in Turkey to the Khatanim. On Shabbat, they would give a gold dinar as a present in the shul. So there was a question: can you do this? This is Mukseh. It's not food. It's not usable. What are you gonna do? Go to the store with this thing and buy something? You can't. So everyone said it's asur unless you do something to it from before. You drill a hole in it so you could use it as a necklace. Then fine. Oh, fine. Here is a necklace. We'll give you a medallion. You know. But to give him, I remember in Iran, in many shuls, like some kid would go and read the part of tefillah. So they would give him a ro palavi, nim palavi. I don't know, whatever they would give them. It's a problem.
But there's no use of this of that time probably either.
Thank you.
You
So
can't
he's
go to the
Mukseh,
store and
right? So he's Mukseh. It's not, you're confirming that it's Mukseh.
Oh.
There's no use. There's nothing. It's like a rock.
oh.
It is a rock. Gold.
Oh my goodness.
So I
That
remember.
has like sentimental value. Like
Yeah.
it's not.
Fine.
It's like let's say like a diamond ring. Like that's you want if someone
I
gave
mean,
that
it's
to you,
beautiful. What are you gonna do?
everyone's
Say here.
What if
You know,
someone
you're gonna-
gives you the diamond
Yeah.
without the ring?
Then what are you gonna do with it? Pick your teeth with the diamond.
Oh no.
It's a rock. That's all it is. It might be beautiful because then we have other problems. But with the thing, I remember in Iran, I was a kid. So in our school they would take the kids to go pray in one of the shuls, and I went, and after tefillah the guy comes like here, yeah. My father Zichron Livracha said, oh thank you, we'll leave it here, and we left everything there, and after Shabbat we went back and got it, because what are you gonna do? It's Mukseh.
Talking about bones, are you supposed to leave it for Birkat Hamazon or take it away?
Oh, good question. So according to if you don't mind. According to Kabbalah,